Unmuted.
Hello, hello, can you hear me now? Everyone can hear me now? Yes, okay, all right. Thanks everyone for joining in and for being so interactive on the platform. Thank you. Welcome again to another, Jaipo webinar series. We're very pleased that you could join us this evening to talk about this interesting topic that we have chosen to focus on this evening. We'll be looking at copyright concerns, learning in a virtual environment. I hope you've all received the program by now, which will have been sent to those who registered through the platform, which will be used to guide the presentations this evening. So my name is Marcus Goff. I'm Deputy Director Legal Counsel here at JIPO, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's proceedings. So this topic, learning in a virtual environment, is a very relevant one now, as we can all understand. Ever since we've had to grapple with the COVID-19 this year, we've seen many changes in how people teach, in how people learn, and in what is required for effective teaching and learning in the virtual classroom. Of course, as with other challenges, this has also brought copyright challenges as well, in terms of the extent to which the sharing, the use of materials, of recordings of people's images and voices are being used for teaching purposes, and what kind of copyright usage permissions are required to regularize those kinds of usage of copyright in those contexts. And so we have a very exciting panel this evening. We are joined here by our colleagues from JAMCOPY, the Jamaica Copyright Licensing Agency. We'll be hearing from the Assistant General Manager, Ms. Philippa Davies, this evening. We are also joined by the BIAJ, Book Industry Association of Jamaica. Ms. Latoya West Blackwood, the chairman, will also be speaking with us this evening, as well as we'll have Ms. Natisha Lindsay and Ms. Kayan Pinnock, who are both representatives of NATE, National Association of Teachers of English. Of course, we're very pleased to have them here with us as well, and their membership. So we look forward to a very interactive discussion, questions and answers, comments, suggestions, etc. And look forward to being able to maneuver the pitfalls that this new environment has created for copyright primarily. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who is our copyright and related rights manager here at JIPO, Chantal English. Ms. English is an attorney at law who is a creative and innovative and passionate individual. She's been at JIPO since 2019, or 2020. It seemed like she's a part of the family, although she's been with us only for a few months. She is a former adjunct tutor at UWI, Faculty of Law. She is also involved in real property law, IP law, and company law, and has done several seminars on various topics on the law. She's a past student of the Queen's School, UWI, and of course the Norman Law School. She is a board advisor for I Aspire International. She's also the youth president and the deputy superintendent of the Sunday school in her church community, and the guide commissioner for the guide section of the Girl Guides Association of Jamaica. She's a motivational speaker and advisor, a youth leader, and also a volunteer with the Ministry of Justice Victim Services Division in St. Catherine. She brings a great wealth of knowledge and experience to this post, and so we invite her to now present to you on copyright and its implications for the learning environment. So over to you, Ms. Inch.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Goff, for that introduction. And thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon for this presentation on copyright concerns, learning in a virtual environment. And as Dr. Goff mentioned earlier, this title is very fitting in times like these, in COVID-19 times. Okay, so I know that there are some persons who will know about Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, but just for those who don't know, just a brief background. So the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, JIPO, is an agency of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. JIPO was established in January 2001 by the Jamaica Intellectual Property Act 2001. So what do we do at JIPO? So JIPO is responsible for administering intellectual property laws in Jamaica, public education, the registration of trademarks, designs, patents, geographical indications, and also the voluntary deposits of copyright and related rights. What is intellectual property? Now, intellectual property is a property right. It defines the creation of the mind. It is also the legal right which results from intellectual activities in the scientific, industrial, literary, musical, and artistic field. So when we talk about intellectual property rights is divided into two main branches. There's industrial property, and there's also copyright and related rights. There's a new branch, which is traditional knowledge. For industrial property, it is divided into designs, patents, trademarks, and GIs. And we have copyright and related rights. Just a little bit about some of the IP rights. Designs protect shapes of three-dimensional articles. Patents protects new inventions. Trademarks protects names and symbols or logos that denote the origin of goods and services. Geographical indications protect signs used on goods that have a specific geographical origin and possesses qualities, reputation, or characteristics are essentially attributed to that place of origin. So this afternoon, our main focus will be on copyright. Now, what is copyright? Section 6.1 of the Copyright Act of Jamaica defines copyright as a property right. This is a legal right that allows creators of creative works to reproduce, distribute, perform, adopt, and communicate or make available to the public those works. Related rights. Related rights are rights in certain aspects that resembles copyright but serve to protect a different interests. The purpose of these related rights is to protect the legal interests of certain persons and legal entities who contribute to making works available to the public. For example, dancers, singers, producers of sound recordings, and broadcasting companies. Copyright protection. So Section 6.1 of the Copyright Act of Jamaica look at the different categories of work that are protected. So we have literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic work, which is in the first category. Then we have sound recordings, films, cable programs, broadcasts, and the final category, typographical arrangements of published editions. Thought it was important for us to have an idea of the definition of the works in these categories. So literary work. So according to Section 2 of the Act, and all these definitions can be found in Section 2 of the Copyright Act. So literary work is any work other than a dramatic or musical work which is written, sung, or spoken and includes A, a written table or compilation, or B, computer program. A musical work is a work consisting of music, exclusive of any words or actions intended to be sung, spoken, or performed with the music. For example, rhythm, scores, or other notations. An artistic work. What is an artistic work? An artistic work includes painting, drawings, diagrams, maps, charts, or plan. A photograph is also an artistic work, sculpture, or collage, whether the work is of artistic quality or not. Also, a building or a model of a building, whether the building or model of a building is of an artistic quality. Let's look at dramatic works. Dramatic works are works of dance or mime. And we look at the or related rights. So sound recording, a recording of sounds from which sounds may be reproduced, or a recording of the whole or part of a literary, dramatic, or a musical work from which sounds reproducing the work or parts may be produced. So regardless of the medium on which the recording is made or the method by which the sounds are reproduced or produced. And film, a recording on any medium from which a moving image may by any means be produced. And lastly, a broadcast, a transmission by wireless telegraphy of visual images or sounds or other information. So I thought it was important for us to look at some of the definition so we could understand, and this is in the scope of us as teachers who would need to know some of these definitions. So one of the questions that we have been asked is online teaching considered a performance? So let's take a look at what the Copyright Act defines a performer. So a performer is any actor, singer, musician, dancer, or other person who acts, sings, depicts, delivers, declaims, play in, or otherwise perform a literary, dramatic, musical, or artistic work, and references to performers in this context of the person having performance rights. So to answer that question is yes. So all teachers teaching on a particular platform, you are considered to be a performer. Copyright protection. Copyright does not protect ideas, concepts, procedures, methods, or phrases. Copyright protects the original expression of ideas, and the works shall not be eligible for protection unless it is in a tangible format, and this is in section 6, subsection 2. Copyright owners have two main rights. They have a moral right and they have an economic right attached to their work. Now, the moral right is the right attached to the copyright owner, which allows the author to be identified with their work, not to have their work treated in a derogatory manner, and not to have the work falsely attributed to them as the author. And economic rights can be found in section 9.1 of the Act. The owner of the copyright in a work shall have the exclusive right to do or to authorize other persons to do any of the following acts, which is to copy the work, issue copies of the work to the public, perform the work, play or show the work in public, broadcast the work to the public, adopt the work, or make the work available on demand, which is on the internet. Now, with the advent of the internet, copyright owners needed more protection. So the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, introduced the WIPO Copyright Treaty, WCT, which was adopted in Geneva on December 20th, 1996, and must always be read in connection with the Berne Convention for the protection of literary and artistic work, and which provides safeguards for protecting works in the digital era. The WIPO Copyright Treaty allows authors of literary and dramatic works to enjoy the exclusive rights of authorizing any communication to the public of their works by wire or wireless means in such a way that members of the public may access those works from a place and at a time chosen by them. And we see this happening right now. We're all on the internet. We're all accessing information on the internet. So Article 11 provides that contracting parties to the treaty must ensure that legal protection and effective legal remedies must be available to protect the works of copyright owners. So I spoke about the different works. So let's look at the term of protection. So literary, musical, dramatic, and artistic work that lasts for the life of the author plus 95 years. Sound recordings, films, broadcasts, cable programs, 95 years from the end of the year in which they were made or made available to the public. Typographical arrangements of public edition, 50 years from the year in which the edition was first published. Who owns the copyright in a work? Section 22(1) of the Copyright Act of Jamaica states that subject to the provisions of this section, the author of a protected work is the first owner of any copyright in the work unless there's an agreement to the contrary. So it's very important that you review their employment contracts carefully before signature. An employee owns, when does an employee own the copyright in a work? An employee owns the copyright of a work that he creates where he is not obliged to produce the work under his contract of service or the express or implied terms of his contract vest copyright ownership in him. Let's take a look at particular case, Noah and Shuba, 1991 case. So the plaintiff was a consultant epidemiologist employed under a contract of service as a public health laboratory service. He wrote a guide to hygienic skin piercing in spare time, and he used the PHLS, which is the Public Health Laboratory Service, secretaries, and the library. So the plaintiff's contract was silent about copyright. So the defendants used large extracts from the guide in promotional materials for a sterilizer. The plaintiff sued for injunction and damages for the infringement. And the court held in this case that based on Noah's appointment to the consultant, he should be entitled to retain the copyright in case copyrights in the work written by him in the course of his employment. Just want to make a point that each case is different, so each situation will be assessed on a case-by-case basis. So let's look at infringement. What penalties are there if you are found to have breached the Copyright Act? Section 31(1) of the Copyright Act of Jamaica states that copyright is infringed by any person who, without the license of the copyright owner, does in relation to that work any of the acts which the copyright owner has the exclusive right to do pursuant to Section 9, which I spoke about earlier. So anyone who infringes the copyright in a work can be penalized by way of fine, depending on the jurisdiction of the court, or even imprisonment. We look at some of the Section 31 offenses. Civil, so damages can be awarded, injunction accounts for profits. Criminal, Section 46 can be a 5 years imprisonment or a fine in the Supreme Court, and 2 years for Magistrate Court, and a fine of 100,000. Okay, there are exceptions. Fair dealing. Fair dealing, one may reproduce the copyrighted work for a limited purpose, and this is for research or private study, educational purposes, criticism and review, reporting current events. And again, let's look at the Act. What we're governed by. Section 52 and 53 of the Copyright Act of Jamaica. So fair dealing is determined on a case-by-case basis and looks at why the work was used, how much of the work was used, the type of work that was used, and the effect that the use have on the potential market or commercial value of the work. Section 56(1) says that copyright in a literary, dramatic, musical, or artistic work is not infringed by being copied in the course of instructions or for preparations for instructions, provided that the copying is done by a person giving or receiving instruction and is not by means of a reprographic process, which is printing or photocopying. Section 56(3), copyright in a work is not infringed by anything done for the purpose of an examination by way of setting the questions, communicating the questions to candidates, or answering the questions. So let's look at some recommendations. How to proceed with online teaching. Necessary precautions must be taken to ensure that creators are protected. It is always important to obtain consent from the copyright owner to use their work. That's one. Two, it is important that there's an agreement with the owner of the copyrighted work that speaks to the terms and the use of the work. Three, attribution must always be given to the owners of the copyrighted works. Some other recommendations: link journal articles, ebooks, and websites. Provide information about the link to access the information as opposed to copying the information from the website, ebooks, or journal articles. Some school provides access to online course materials. Permission to access the material does not mean that one should copy the information, including lesson plans, or circulate that information to other colleagues. Reference should always be made to the source of your information. Be very careful when using images and sounds. Select those licensed with a Creative Commons license. Copying an image is copying the entire work. Plan and serve rights. Remember copyright. Thank you so much. Over to our moderator. That's enough.
Okay, thanks very much, Miss English, for that presentation on copyright. Just to set the background and the parameters within which we operate here in Jamaica by virtue of the Copyright Act, which of course is the backdrop to our whole discussion. So thanks a lot for that, Miss English, and for sticking within the time frame. All right, so we're going to introduce now our next speaker from Jam Copy. For Jam Copy and Nate are our partners for this webinar this evening. So if they want to welcome the Jam Copy members and the Nate members to our platform. And I now have the pleasure to introduce Ms. Philippa Davies, who's Assistant General Manager of Jam Copy. So Ms. Davies is an attorney at law. She has a Master of Laws degree in IP Law from Queen Mary College, the University of London. She's also a published author. And of course, as I said, she is the Assistant General Manager at the Jamaican Copyright Licensing Agency, Jam Copy. So now we'd love to invite Ms. Davies to present for us in the webinar. Ms. Davies? Right, I see that Ms. Davies seems to maybe be having some internet challenges. I see from the platform that she is trying to connect, and I understand she's been trying to connect for some time. So I'm not sure if Ms. Davies is able to hear us, or if maybe someone from Jam Copy to make contact with her to see if she is having some problem that we could help her with. But Ms. Davies, did we lose her? Ms. Davies, we lost Ms. Davies, unfortunately, there. So I don't know if we can ask Dr. Pickney to maybe make contact with Ms. Davies to see if she's able to connect to do her presentation. Maybe she can join by phone. If it's too much to do the video, we can have her join as well by just audio. Okay? I do want to apologize for Ms. Lilka Belling's absence. She's the Executive Director of JIPO, and she's currently engaged in another appointment, which she should be able to join us shortly thereafter. Okay, so I see Ms. Davies is with us. So good evening, Philippa. Hope you can hear us and see us. I just introduced you, And I'm now giving the floor to you to do your presentation. Okay. So I can see you, Philippa, but we don't see your mic open. Not sure if you're trying. Okay. Can you hear us? Okay. We're not hearing you, actually. We're not hearing. Okay. Okay. Thanks, John. Okay. Um, right. Okay. So just to check and see, we see you on now, Philippa. Can I see back? So, right. We see Philippa is on and her mic is open. But we're not hearing. So, but our audio is on, eh? Okay. All right. All right. So yes, thanks for that. What we're gonna do then is just move to our next presenter while we allow Miss Davies some time from Jamaica to be able to better connect with us. All right. Cool. So we have now also joining us, as I mentioned earlier, the Book Industry Association of Jamaica. And so we will now hear from the chairman, Mrs. Latoya West Blackwood. Mrs. West Blackwood is a publishing consultant and nonprofit leader whose work focuses on gender equality, social justice, and literacy as tools for transformation and sustainable development. She's a 2020 Yale School of Management International Publishing Leader Awardee for book publishing, recognizing her work as chairperson of the Book Industry Association of Jamaica. Her most recent contribution was as a member of Jamaica's National Consultative Committee for the USAID LAC REACH project, which was done locally by EduConnect Jamaica. Latoya is a professional fellow and a member of the inaugural class of Barack Obama's Young Leaders of the Americas Initiative, while AI. As founding president of the U.S. Exchanges Alumni Association of Jamaica, she represents the island's alumni of all U.S. State Department sponsored academic, cultural, and business exchange programs. She's also the current chairman of Youth Crime Watch of Jamaica, a youth inspired and research driven nonprofit organization based at the UWI Mona campus, working in communities across Jamaica in areas of violence prevention, sustainable livelihoods, and promoting change through the arts. So very pleased to have with us then Mrs. Latoya Blackwood to join us to present on the perspective of the BIAJ on the issues of copyright and the new online learning environment. Latoya?
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you doing?
Good to see you, and thanks for the invitation to join this very important discussion. And I realize you have been having webinars over the period, focusing on different topics. So out of bad has come good in terms of the engagement, the increased engagement. So kudos to the Jaipur team on that.
Thank you.
So to get straight into my presentation this evening, I just it will really focus on an update in terms of what has been happening with the book industry as it relates to this period that we're in and the transition to a virtual learning environment more than we have had in the past. So, not assuming that all your 128 attendees know about the Book Industry Association, I will just open with a brief introduction to say what we're about. So, the Book Industry Association of Jamaica at 30 plus years, founded in 1989, is one of the oldest such trade associations in the English speaking Caribbean, representing the collective interests of publishers, booksellers, people engaged in the promotion and distribution sector. And we do have some authors among our numbers, though we have JAWS, the Jamaica Writers Society, that, does that kind of representation very well. We also are pleased to have among our membership members who are positioned to really prosper and to support the educational, virtual educational environment at this time. We have Learning Hub, which is Dr. Charlotte Ashman, and we have Book Fusion, which is Dwayne Campbell and his other founders. And so that's a nutshell in terms of the areas, the sectors that we cover. Uh, our founding chairman, Shirley Kirby, as most people will know, is the, well, I don't know that she's actively at work, but you would know her from Carlong Publishers. And finally, I guess just for everybody's information, the Book Industry Association is primarily concerned with fostering a knowledge culture, and we do that in many ways. We lobby, of course, on behalf of the industry with local, regional, and international partners and stakeholders. We also do public engagement through our Kingston Book Festival, which unfortunately this year we opted to cancel. We will be having a 2021 staging, which will present a hybrid event. We have been watching and learning from the different experiments we have seen this year in terms of virtual festivals, and we have definitely gotten some good examples, and we will be working towards unveiling something that will be truly new and different come 2021, all being well. And finally, we are, of course, provisional members of the International Publishers Association. We have had that status since 2018, and I'm happy to report that Jamaica is actually a very active member um, at that level. We would have participated, and you would know Marcus because you attended one of our first meetings with international meetings with us as members in Santo Domingo. That was a regional workshop on copyright held in July 2019. So, with all of that being said, that's just a little background on Book Industry Association. And let's look at what the discussion is today. So, we know that with COVID 19 in particular, it's not that COVID 19 invented the virtual learning environment, but of course, it accelerated the pace at which we had to implement and to introduce that modality into our education system. Now, we have all seen the challenges or read about them, heard about them that have come with that. And we have also identified the opportunities where the book industry is concerned. Of course, we are about providing the materials and supporting the educational needs of students and other learners, regardless of the format. But we are about doing that in an environment that is structured and respects the rights of all, particularly the rights of creators. And so we, of course, are very, very well acquainted with what those standards are, having the BIAJ being the birthplace of Jam Copy and maintaining a close working relationship over the years. And so, what happened very early out, we of course would have started receiving reports about the fact that, I mean, copyright generally in terms of the educational space, even before the virtual learning environment would have, gotten to a more prominent point in terms of our discussion and focus, we would have known that there have always been issues in terms of how learning materials have been accessed and used in relation to copyright over the years. Most of us would have heard or been familiar with the, persons in a Halfway Tree or whichever town center photocopying materials and having those available for sale illegally. We would also be aware of the formal learning environment where materials would be used to form quote unquote course packs or other types of packages to support students learning, and of course being done without license or any other formal arrangements that would protect both the institutions that are doing that and also be respecting the rights of creators. And so, what has really happened in the current context is that some of the issues that we have flagged from ever since and have been grappling with, those have now transferred over into the virtual learning environment. And so, becoming aware of that, what the book industry did after receiving at least one major formal report where legal action was taken, we decided that beyond our usual pleas and requests with the different partners, the different stakeholders, the different agencies to ensure that they had the different measures in place, we decided to formally raise this with the newly appointed at the time Minister of Education, Favor Williams. And so, in our very first meeting with her, which also doubled as a courtesy call, we shared with her our concerns around the illegal use of materials. And also, in this environment, we're moving from just now written works to the whole matter of using videos and other formats to support learning, and how we believe that the ministry should finally, and I say finally because Jam Copy will speak about the work that they have been doing with the ministry, but there were some outstanding matters as it relates to the ministry taking a lead role in ensuring that the relevant licenses were in place to ensure that we're operating in a structured and legal environment. The book industry, of course, being members of the IPA, we, of course, want to ensure that Jamaica is represented well. The Jamaica actually, through the work of JIPO, Jam Copy, and other stakeholders, has been leading the way for years regionally in terms of the work that we have done to set up a legislative environment and other conditions to support copyright. And so we believed that there were certain, we still believe because we have not had some of the very urgent and um, decisive steps that we need to be taken resolved, but we believe that that will be the case. But we do believe that there are threats that exist in the environment, particularly with the low barrier to entry for some pirates where technology is concerned and their level of savviness, that there were threats significant enough to warrant us raising this matter formally and also, raising it in the media to heighten the national awareness, not just among the formal agencies and at that level, but to the regular citizens, the teachers, the parents, the students, about what was really required in terms of legally using and copying works that our authors and other creators spend much time, money, and effort to create. And so we took that step. We're also happy to report that in terms of our international efforts, we were represented in the IPA's historic set of reports under the banner of the State of Publishing. They released those reports at the Frankfurt Book Fair, which was a hybrid event this year. So they were in-person events and a digital book fair. they release those reports, and Jamaica is represented in the copyright reports. I must say at this point in time, special thanks to our publishing director, Miss Jody McBean Douglas, who is at UA Press. She is our publishing director on the board and would have worked with JIPO and other entities to ensure that Jamaica is represented um, in that report, and that we continue to lobby and to be a voice at that international level. And what it means then is at home we have to ensure that we continue to monitor the space and to ensure that the different stakeholders and players are adhering to the requirements. Um, and so far, as I said, so good, but we are eager to see, for example, the Ministry of Education finally put in place the things that we believe will be the formal steps to ensure that we are operating in the environment that we should be. Closing out, I would say that, what has happened during COVID, it is not a matter of us going through a period of change and then looking at going back to business as usual. We are looking at a future that will represent education being delivered in multiple modalities, and it means that content will become far more dynamic, it will become far more accessible, and so we want to ensure that this represents more of an opportunity than a threat to our creators who, as I say, invest their time, talents into creating these materials to support learning, whether in person or virtually. We want to ensure that while we are providing the public with a good and with access, that we are also balancing the scale in terms of doing so legally and doing it the right way. And I mean, we could go on to say so much more, but in the interest of time, I will cap my comments at that. I believe we have the Ministry of Education participating, and we also have Jam Copy, so they can provide further details on where we're at on the matter that I have raised.
Okay, thanks very much, Latoya. Nice and short and just hitting the key points, And thanks for leaving more time for discussion, which I think is very important, with these kind of
Yeah.
topics. All right, so we're going to invite Philippa to share with us to make her presentation. I did see her just a bit earlier. So Philippa, hope you're here with us. The floor is now yours to share. We're not hearing you. No, we're not hearing you. We're seeing you, but we're not hearing you. No, we're seeing your mouth moving. But the microphone doesn't seem to be connected. I don't know if you can select an alternative microphone, or I don't know what maybe the challenge. Maybe Mr. Hope can assist you.
I'll share my screen and then she can look and see.
Can you share the screen with everybody?
Well, yeah.
If she's using an earphone, maybe it might be some functionality related to that plugin. So maybe you could check that.
Okay. No earphone?
Oh, okay.
So Mr. Hope, you want to share screen and sure? Sure. Mr. Hope is going to share a screen now to try and see if he can assist you to choose the microphone. So at the top of the screen is the audio options, and it has a list of microphones there. You can click to select.
That's moving. Any one of them is that's moving. Select.
So any microphone that's moving when you speak, you can probably choose that one, select that one, and that one should then hopefully transmit sound to us. These, of course, are also some of the challenges with this new learning environment. The tools change according to the platform and the device being used, and so these are unforeseen circumstances sometimes. No, if that doesn't work, I don't know if perhaps maybe if you connect by your phone, if you do by phone, maybe that would have you be able to speak and we hear. No, no. Okay.
Well, she's, I think we can develop or something like the no color.
Okay.
No color.
All right. All right. So we're gonna give some more time to Philippa. I don't know if maybe Mr. Hope maybe can see to connect with her on the back end to share some tips. Yes. That could assist perhaps. Yes. Yeah. All right. So we'll keep the program rolling. I know that we have a large audience looking forward to having your questions answered. So thanks again, Latoya, for sharing your insights. I look forward to having some discussion on some of the points you raised. So I'm now going to invite the two representatives of the National Association of Teachers of English, NATE, to join us. You know, this forum was very much planned with NATE in mind. You know, they had reached out to Jam Copy to do a copyright forum, and we had reached out to Jam Copy also to do a copyright forum, and so we decided to merge to have this forum this evening and have it at this time so it will be able to facilitate the participation of the NATE membership. So we're very pleased to have with us on the platform this evening Ms. Natisha Lindsay and Ms. Kayan Pina, both from the National Association of Teachers of English. So Ms. Lindsay has been an educator for over 20 years. She's a member of NATE for the past 17 years and has served on the executive committee for almost as long. She worked as the chair for the Public Relations Committee as well, and worked closely with the late Mr. Peter Maxwell, who was the chair for that committee. She currently serves as a treasurer for NATE. She also serves as the association's liaison on the board of the Jamaica Reading Association, now called the Jamaica Literacy Association. She's been a trainer of teachers for 4 years at the Ministry of Education and also an external quality assurer for the City and Guilds qualification in English. She's also been an assistant marker for CSEC English A and B and CAPE in English literature over 10 years. She has as her credits 4 sources that she lists as her credits. Jesus Christ has always been her guide, her foster mother, her biggest supporter, those persons who placed in her life to ensure that she pushed harder when they were told that she couldn't, and also her students who are her motivation, especially those who have followed the instructions. So, Ms. Lindsay, we'd like to hear from you, speaking on behalf of NATE, and then we will hear from Mrs. K and Pina, who are introduced at that time. So, Ms. Lindsay, welcome.
Good afternoon, Dr. Goff. Good afternoon, colleagues. It is a pleasure to be with you all. All protocols observed. I'd like to extend special greeting to our NATE members as well as those teachers who are joining from Project Jaguar, which is a Caribbean group of teachers coming together across the Caribbean to support each other. So I welcome them specially to this forum. As the introduction stated, I am here representing NATE, and one of the things that we are concerned about as teachers is the fact that we produce on a daily basis. When it was face to face, it could be monitored, the copywriting and the production of copies of material. But now we are online. I believe everything has changed, and teachers have been reaching out that they are concerned about breaking laws and possible punishment and all of that. The presenters before, who are the experts, have shared those information. But what we would like to know as teachers, what is the process really of getting our materials, our personal materials copyrighted? Because we have some persons here who actually do presentations and do their content on their own. They create videos, podcasts, and such. What How do we go about getting our materials copyrighted? Secondly, I was asking, and I think that most persons would know, as an organization, say like NATE, how feasible is it for an umbrella group, teachers, especially teachers of English? We teach texts from across the Caribbean, and these writers, these authors, playwrights, poets, how feasible is it for us to have an umbrella group where they would have their content, their texts in one setting, and as an organization we are allowed to pay copyright to that umbrella group, where our members would pay, and then for a period of time, say a year or such, then they would be allowed to use the documents of these persons. So these are some of the concerns that we're having. We are really here to find out what it is, because it is very heartening for us to recognize that yes, we have published authors, but some of us are not yet published, and our works are our intellectual properties, and they are being used. And I have a concern, I think, for our classes, because we spend a lot of time and we upload our documents. What is the copyright law in terms of students? How can students use our documents and not ensure that they put it out in the public? Because in truth and in fact, for my classes, I ensure that I record all classes and then I upload it to the classroom so that the students who are absent or who are late or who get drop off because of connectivity issues are able to access afterwards. But how much of my material can the students take out of the classroom? And as for the responsibilities of platforms, how secure are our documents on the platforms when we upload them? Because I am assuming that since platforms can throw out things that are uploaded like YouTube, if they are copyrighted, then what about like Google Classroom, Edmodo, Schoology, and all those other platforms that we know as teachers are using? So those are some of the concerns that we have as teachers, and as the experts are here, we would like to get some information relating to those concerns.
Miss Lindsay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so that was your presentation just to set some
Parameters on
concern.
what teacher, yes, some parameters on what teachers are really concerned about. Because
Okay.
as I said, we are an association, we lend support to teachers, and teachers are concerned really about not just using other person's work safely and within the ambit of the law, but we're also concerned about protecting our own work. And this online space has forced us as teachers to do a lot of intellectual property creation. And so we are concerned too, because we notice, I say to my students all the time, and I say to their parents, my classes are recorded, but I don't want my classes to be exposed on social media and such. So
Mhm.
do not share my classes. This is my class. And also to protect the students, because they will participate in class and they might say some things and not. So I have to be in a kind of child protective case, where I'm protecting my students as well as I'm protecting my own property. And I would like to know, because that is why sometimes teachers will not allow students in the class, because if they come into the class on a device that is not on the, say the student's name is on the teacher's register. So if I have a student, Marcus Goff then, and he is using Nadine Sims' device, because Nadine Sims is not on my register, I am not going to allow her into my class.
Right.
But then it is Marcus using his mother's device. So these are some of the things, and it is affecting students because they can't access, and then they'll have to be requesting access to whatever documents are placed in the classroom. And you don't know, you can't grant the access. So these are some of the concerns that we're having, and really, as an umbrella group, as an organization, we recognize that teachers of English use a lot of resources because we have to teach content across subject areas. All right. And so when we are pulling, we would like to know, can we say these set of writers, could you come together? And yes, your property is copyrighted, but then the organization, our registered members through us, can access your information. I think that is something that we would like to know if it is feasible, and it could be applied to other subject areas, because I think, reduce the infringement and the breakage of the laws. Because really and truly, I don't think none of us wants to pay any 100,000 fine or spend any time in jail. And Mrs. Pinnock, who is a paralegal, and she is also aware of the legal aspect of this, and so it was concerning when we saw and heard our colleagues and our peers crying out at the beginning what will happen, because we now have to be uploaded and uploaded. I must thank Mrs. Dorothy Noel, because when I contacted her, she allowed me to understand that if I upload a poem, I am copyrighting, I am infringing on the copyright, because the entire poem is the work of the person. So those are things that we did not know, because we thought that if we copy a poem, the students have no access, and we copy a poem just for them to get access. We didn't know as teachers that we were breaking the law. And another thing that what I try to do, and I advise my colleagues across the Caribbean and such, and I heard one of the experts say it, is that if I go online or I use a text and I'm making a PDF or a Word document, at some point I insert the web link or the URL, and I say I retrieve it on this day from this site, just to protect myself. And I'm now wondering if that in itself is enough protection for me. So yes, I am here really to give an ambit of what the teachers are concerned about, what we are coming from in terms of teachers now on this online space, what are the laws concerning the platforms and how they disseminate our information, and our information be said all over, or is it that our information is protected, because really we have not paid you anything in terms of to protect our property. So we are not copyrighted, but then it is our intellectual properties. So what is our coverage? How do we protect ourselves?
Okay, man. Thanks for that. Very clear. Of course, very real concerns, and challenges that, again, I think many of us have been thrust into, not necessarily thinking through all of these scenarios, but having to deal with the realities as they have faced us suddenly this year. So thanks for that. Just to clarify for the audience that Miss Lindsay is the representative of NATE for the secondary teachers. And so we'll be hearing from Miss Pinnock, no, Mrs. Kayan Pinnock, who is a representative of NATE working and talking on behalf of the primary school teachers of English. So to introduce Mrs. Pinnock. Mrs. Pinnock has 16 years experience working with different levels of the primary school system. She's currently pursuing a paralegal certification based on her passion for law. She's an avid researcher who's keen to assist others to find out the facts, especially when it comes to staying on the legal path and doing things. Being a problem solver, she works with individuals by researching and introducing them to the right channels or sources of information that help them to achieve their objectives successfully. So, Mrs. Pinnock, we're glad to hear from you as to any particular concerns or challenges facing you and your teachers of NAT in the primary school system. Mrs. Pinnock?
Mr. Goff, Dr. Goff, Mrs. Pinnock is saying that she cannot hear from the laptop and she was sent a message that she cannot present from her phone. So she's trying to sort that out. So if you could go to the next presenter and then come back to her, please and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Lindsay. Thank you very much for that. We do understand the challenges, of course. So yes, we hope that you'll be able to join us soon. All right, so I see a message from Dr. Joan Pinkney of Jam Copy that she will make the presentation on behalf of Jam Copy as Ms. Philippa Davies is having challenges also to connect.
Hi,
So
Marcus, can you hear me?
yes, Philippa.
Yes, this is Philippa.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you nice and clear. How are you doing?
All right. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen.
All right, we can see you now. We can see you now. And we can hear you now. So making progress.
And hopefully you'll be able to see my screen.
Right. Not seeing the screen yet, but so you're using the share screen icon at the top?
I am using the share screen icon.
So co-host, right?
And then you share entire screen.
Entire screen, yes.
Here we go. It's coming up.
It's coming up
I
now.
can bring up my laptop. Do you see my?
Yes,
do
you
you
see
see
your
my
screen.
presentation?
No, we don't see
That
the presentation.
says. Oh,
We see.
all right. Let me go then.
No, man, you did the right thing. You just need to bring up the presentation and then put it on presentation mode. So share your entire screen. Bring up your presentation because we are seeing the webinar.
You are seeing it?
Yeah, so I was saying that share your entire screen. And then after you share your entire screen, what you're going to do is you're going to go to your presentation and start your presentation.
All right. Let me go back here again now. Share my screen. Share the screen. Share the screen.
Good.
Then switch to the presentation. Do you see this presentation?
Yes, we're seeing it now.
And then go to do your
With the slideshow from the beginning. Right. Great.
You started it?
Okay.
Or you can press F5 on the keyboard to
Yes.
start. Great. Great. You
Okay.
see
Do
it?
you see it now?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. Praise the Lord. Thank you very much, Dr. Goff, and everyone for your patience. I'm glad to be able to make this presentation. I am going to assume that Ms. English covered the basics about copyright, and so I just want to pick up then on the economic rights, which is what is of interest particularly to Jam Copy. But if I could just quickly respond to the teacher who spoke, Ms. Lindsay, where she was querying that they too are creators of works and are they protected? Just to emphasize that copyright is automatic once a work exists in a written or recorded form. So once that poem has been written on paper or typed up on the laptop, or that song has been recorded in a phone or in a CD, the fact that it is now a tangible, intangible existence, the law already begins to apply. What you would then do as a creator thereafter, whether you're going to be publishing it, making it available to the public, you would ensure that you would have the copyright symbol, which is the seen side of the closed circle, your name, so that we know that this work is attributed to you, and the date on which you have created it. And thereafter, it requires diligence and vigilance to manage or to watch over the use of the work, and this is where an agency like Jam Copy steps in. So just to say then that there are the two types of rights under copyright: the moral right to be associated with this work, your name associated as the author of the work, and then the economic rights, which is the using of the work to earn a fee or earn financially, benefit financially from it. And this is why we call it economic rights. And the rights that the law gives you as the creator and owner of the work is to make a copy of the work or make copies of the work, to distribute it, to have it performed, to have it broadcast, for it to be adapted, for example, translated into other languages, and to make it available online for persons to access at their own convenience. Now, the question does arise: how do we preserve these copyrights? How do we preserve it in an online environment when we realize that online gives persons access to millions of works across the world? It's borderless, but it's also very easy to copy and to share with others. How does the owner preserve their exclusive rights to determine who can and who cannot copy it and distribute it when it is so easily accessible, or can be so easily accessible on the online environment? And creators and owners may employ various means, whether to require subscription to have access to their website, whether to have a key unlock, a digital key unlock in providing access to the work. But one way certainly is the user can always ask for permission. They can always ask for a license. This is what we mean: legal permission to use a work in a particular way. So a license then, understanding that in our online world, and especially in the educational field, you are using many, many works. The volume of works is perhaps uncountable. And then how do you track every single author of the work that you use? And how do they keep track of every single user who uses their work? It is nigh impossible, time-consuming, and quite expensive. So this is where an agency such as Jam Copy steps in to be a bridge between the consumer and the creator, to do the legwork in finding the users, finding the authors, and connecting them together. And understanding that an economic approach is for the authors and the owners of the work to work collectively together, to manage their rights collectively rather than each one tracking down the user individually. You reduce cost and time by doing it collectively. Multiple users, multiple authors and owners negotiating in one go. So there are 3 collective management organizations in Jamaica, 2 that specialize in music, JCAP and JAMS, and then Jam Copy, we specialize in text and image-based works that are published in print. Text, so words, image-based, whether illustrations or other sort of graphic representation, photographs that have been published primarily in print, meaning in paper. And what we do is to make contact with these authors and creators, whether they're fiction writers, nonfiction writers, song text writers, translators, journalists, editors, illustrators, or book and journal publishers, newspaper publishers, magazine publishers. And they join Jam Copy, giving us the right to act on their behalf in order to negotiate the license with the users. So who are some of Jam Copy's licensees? Well, all of the universities, UE, UTEC, NCU, CMU, the government of Jamaica, Heart Trust, all of the teachers' colleges, the majority of the community colleges, and we are in the process of negotiating a license with the Ministry of Education. So this is a cycle. The schema represents the cycle of the work of a collective management organization like Jam Copy, getting permission to act on behalf of the rights holders. We conclude bilateral agreements with our equivalents in other countries around the world, such as the USA, Canada, UK, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Barbados, Belize. And what that does, it gives the Jamaican creator, author, and publisher who is a member of Jam Copy protection in those countries through these bilateral agreements. But it also means that the American and the Canadian and the British and the Belizean authors have protection in Jamaica through Jam Copy. It also means that anyone who gets a Jam Copy license has legal access not only to the Jamaican authors and publishers whose works Jam Copy represents, but also the millions of works of these authors and publishers in our colleagues, our partners in the other countries. So the Jam Copy license is access to a wide range and numbers of works. You could consider then Jam Copy a local gateway to the international market or the international repertoire of these works. And then what happens through this license, a royalty or a fee is paid to Jam Copy, who then transmits this royalty to our authors and publishers in December. We pay out our royalty once a year. And then along with with JIPO and other stakeholders, we work together to promote awareness of copyright and compliance with the copyright law to help build up the creative industries in Jamaica. So just to say that Jam Copy, we've been in this business for over 22 years. We have distributed over $200 million in royalties over the last 13 years. And I must boast to say that the majority of the money stays home. So whereas for the music copyright, the collective management organizations, a lot of the work used is foreign works. What we are doing, we are keeping most of the money home for our local authors and publishers, and that is something significant. And we have so far 775 authors, 45 publishers, and the number is growing. And to say that we're part of a regional grouping called Caroso, so there is an equivalent to Jam Copy in Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, the Eastern Caribbean, and Belize, and we're also part of the international framework. We are a local body, part of a regional and international framework. Let me come to a close just to say, when we're talking about copying, it's a very broad definition. Copying means a copying, so it means a copying, a copy. So whether it's photocopying, whether it's scanning, whether it's uploading, whether it's downloading, whether it is emailing, it is making a copy of a work. And so permission ought to be acquired in order to make legal that copying. Even if you have a print version, if you were to scan and upload to an intranet or scan and share on the email, that requires permission, and a license would cover that copying. So what do you get under the Jam Copy license? Well, you get to copy an entire newspaper article or page, a single short story, a single poem from a book, an entire entry from an encyclopedia or annotated bibliography, entire reproduction of an artistic work, and a chapter which is 20% or less of a book. Now, recognizing that we have migrated online because of COVID, Jam Copy has increased the boundaries for copying that the licenses we have. So before, you would have had up to 10 to 15% of a work or a chapter which is 20% or less of the book, but now we've increased it up to 35% or 3 chapters, whichever is greater. We had instituted this increase from the early days of COVID, and we renewed it. We have renewed it now until December. But again, depending on what is happening in the educational sector, we will review this at the end of the year. So I'll stop right there for now, Marcus, and then engage in the discussion and any questions that we may have from the audience.
Okay, thanks, Philippa. So, yes, thank you, Philippa. We did hear you loud and clear, and we're grateful to be able to see your slides. So, thanks a lot for that.
Okay.
And yes, want to leave good time for questions. So, I'm going to now invite Ms. Pinnock, who I saw had joined us earlier. Ms. Pinnock, if you are able to speak, you can please do so. With or without a video, if you just speak, that's also fine to share your perspective.
Good afternoon. Okay, I hope there's no feedback there.
Nothing more.
From my perspective, I want to thank everyone for hosting us this afternoon and actually to voice our concerns as well as to get our questions
Miss Pinnock,
answered.
Miss Pinnock, we're not hearing you at all so clearly.
No,
The connection is very bad.
because earlier on we saw two articles, one internationally and one locally, where individuals were concerned about copyright issues as it relates to persons using their work at will. Now,
No, Miss Pinnock, we
paralegal,
lost you.
I find it very interesting. We all know and intellectual it is a legal issue. Now, we want to find out how can us as educators protect ourselves from being prosecuted, one, as well as also protect ourselves our work. The thing is how we use other people's work, because it's our job to just do research for granted that we can just copy and paste web and use it as we see fit. Now, what we would like, some questions that we would like to that govern rather the use of other people's work, and also what is the process to get permission from authors, publishers, and other intellectual rights owners to use their work, and when we go through the process, where do we make payment to use also for those who want to work who are interested in getting their work copyright and may not know the process, so we would really like to know some how to go about doing that. I heard one of the presenters prior to this one, I think it was the presenter from Jam Copy, who spoke about the penalty for breaching the Copyright Act. And I think that is a very clear indication that if we do not go about using people's work correctly, it is a serious offense and we want to for that. So if the relevant authority here or person here could just address those issues for some of our educators, it would be good. Thanks for allowing me to present. Not hearing.
I Miss Pinnock, we heard most of what you were saying, but I don't know if you were finished or if you wanted to continue. We were hearing most of what you were saying. Okay, we may have lost Miss Pinnock, but right, I did hear what you were saying, Miss Pinnock, in terms of not wanting to be prosecuted as teachers and wanting to know the right way to get permission from copyright owners to use their copyright works. And I also saw a question in the audience chat as it relates to appropriate fees or rates, for a jam copy license. So yes, I think these are very good points raised and things that need to be known. And so that's precisely why we have this panel here this evening. So right, please make a note of those questions, Philippa, concerning the jam copy license, whether there are any special rates. Of course, jam copy is the organization that you would get the licenses from. to be able to properly use the copyright works of others, right? And I do. There are some special areas that they have. So I know that Philippa can probably share a bit about that in the Q&A. All right, thanks, Ms. Pinnock. I'm going to then introduce our final speaker this evening before we open the floor to questions and answers, and to have it more interactive, to have your question and your concerns addressed. So our final speaker this evening is Miss Nadine S. Sims. She's currently Assistant Chief Education Officer within the Media Services Unit at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. She coordinates and facilitates the processes and people involved in the development, review and evaluation and the distribution of the educational resources to support the various curricula, including the national standards curriculum for the education system. She has over 20 years of experience in the field of education. She's worked with various stakeholders and partners, including CARICOM, CXC, the Joint Board of Teacher of Education, and UNESCO. She's also a trained graduate teacher and holds a master's degree in computer-based management information systems. So please help me to welcome Ms. Nadine Sims, representing the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Ms. Sims, hope you can join us from where you are. The floor is yours. Ms. Sims, yes, Ms. Sims, I see you are online with us. Ms. Sims, you are muted. I don't know if you are hearing us. If you can unmute your mic, please, and share your perspectives with us.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Are you hearing me, Dr. Goff?
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. As was stated earlier, my name is Nadine Sims, and it's indeed a pleasure to participate in this timely conversation as it relates to learning in a virtual environment as with copyright concerns. Just to say, in light of the coronavirus pandemic, educators have been learning to adapt to online learning. But just to set the context that prior to the pandemic, the ministry has been engaged in discussions with our colleagues in the education sector in general and the Book Industry Association of Jamaica, in particular on the matter of copyright. These discussions would have taken place in the context of possible breaches that may have occurred in our public schools. And as was stated earlier by, for example, the teacher, Ms. Pinnock and Ms. Lindsay, some may include photocopying without permission, printing without permission, sharing electronic resources without permission. And we know that there are some implications. For one, it is illegal. There is the loss of revenue. And of course, this can have negative impact, or it creates a negative image of the institution or the person involved. While the ministry has been preparing content for broadcast through various media such as radio and TV, there have been concerns raised by some of the station managers regarding the need to ensure that there is clearance for the use of certain content, such as music. So we, at the Ministry of Education, we have some responsibilities. Just to say that our shared interest in this topic is in wanting to make the best use of available resources to help in the education of our children. And so, of course, you would have heard from Miss Davies that negotiation is underway, and we're trying to obtain a copyright license from Jam Copy. And we would have heard that Honorable Minister stated that a license will be negotiated and in place within the shortest possible time. Of course, we at the Ministry of Education, we are also responsible to educate and or remind stakeholders about copyright compliance through training and public education. So, for example, in workshops with teachers, we have emphasized the need to be mindful of how teachers and other educators incorporate the use of other persons' images, text, and creative work in their online lesson. Just to say, though, that the ministry is currently preparing copyright guidelines for schools, and we hope to make this available to them shortly. Also, we encourage teachers and school leaders to learn about the various aspects of the copyright law that apply in their new digital roles. And as was stated earlier too, we at the ministry, we encourage teachers to create their own local digital resource bank. We at the ministry, we are committed to continuing to produce supplementary educational resources for our public education system, for the public education system, including students with disabilities. We continue to increase access to educational resources by placing them in our online library, which is currently hosted by Book Fusion. Just to remind us that the incumbent minister has also expressed a keen interest in our students having access to ebooks in the expectation that online learning will be with us for some time. So we know that for this academic year, ebooks are introduced, and it is being done on a pilot basis. And just to say that all the ebooks and other content, they are being protected by digital rights management technology. And of course, this is a collection of systems used to protect the copyrights of electronic media. The digital rights technology protects publishers regardless of the connectivity of the device, and the content, for example, is automatically deleted or removed if timed access is used to provide licenses or copies. As an additional feature, as it relates to security, watermarks are used to protect the content, since students are less inclined to screenshot, since they can be easily identified from visible and non-visible markings on the pages. Unlike physical books where photocopies cannot be traced easily, publishers will always be able to track digital copies that identify each user. We recognize that there are challenges in navigating the new normal, and that some things that may have seemed harmless can have far-reaching consequences in the current context. Among the more recent questions raised within the ministry, especially with regard to the production of lessons, are: 1, what is permissible? 2, what is fair usage of recording music and images in the production and presentation of lessons for educational broadcast on radio and TV? How much of a recording artist's work may be used in a lesson? Where and how can I determine if a work is copyrighted? And my final question, who will be held liable if there is a breach of the copyright? The producer of the lesson, the ministry, or the station that carried the program? We hope that these questions can be answered at the end of our webinar. And in closing, just to say, and I quote from Kalan, it says, the right to be attributed as an author of a work is not merely a copyright, it is every author's basic human right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sims. I like the way you did that presentation, very again to the point and succinct. Of course, ending on that very apt note that copyright are in fact authors' human rights. So how we manage them, how we protect them, how we balance the private rights of the individual and the public rights or the public interest is quite critical. So thanks for that as well, and thanks to all our presenters, for sharing your various perspectives. So without further ado, I'm going to open up the floor to any questions or comments that may be shared. I mean, there have been quite a few already that have
Chair?
been posted. Yes.
Yes, through you, Marcus, I will ask for special permission. I have another meeting that I have to join after this. I would just like to briefly get an opportunity to just respond to some of the questions and points that I noted from the
Sure.
discussion. Like you, I'm grateful to have been a part of this discussion with our very knowledgeable presenters. I think Miss Sims did an excellent job just now recapping the basic points from her perspective in terms of the Ministry of Education, and all the presenters before, of course. Some things that came out there, Miss Sims touched on one that I wanted to address was the whole matter of the public education, and breaking down that public education according to the different stakeholder groups. I think that we can collaborate, I believe, on engaging students, for example, to know their rights. And my comments don't mean that there have not been efforts before, but of course, I think we need to just ramp up and to use the different platforms available to reach to them. I mean, for example, note that the Gen Z group, or digital natives as they're called, they are getting a lot of important messages via apps like TikTok that people, perhaps my age group and older, are not necessarily using, and other platforms. So we have to probably look at the non traditional avenues to get these serious messages out, and get them out in a way that they will understand and process it. As it relates to digital rights management in particular, that is something that we have reached out. We did an ebook primer for our members, BIAJ members, and we actually opened it up to anybody who else wanted to participate. One of the things we found in that discussion is that there was an impression by, we had teachers participating, authors, etc. It was eye-opening for them, understanding that just sometimes creating a PDF of your document and sharing that via email is not enough to protect your work if you're sharing it. And it's potentially open to a large group, because somebody can easily just convert your work back to, for example, Microsoft Word, make edits or make copies, manipulate the content, and you will have issues there. So you really have to, there is an onus on creators as well to ensure that they are up to date on, for example, if you're putting your work on a platform for distribution, ebooks, etc., it is important that, those little terms and conditions that we normally jump over or just press yes and click, then we will actually have to start reading some of those things, because it will actually now have implications in real life in terms of any potential breaches or any manipulation of your work or any rights issues. So the public education is definitely important. Another point that I wanted to touch on were the questions that were raised, I think, by Miss Lindsay, I believe. She raised some important questions there that I believe, just listening to Miss Sims, listening to Philippa from Jam Copy, etc., I believe that a comprehensive but easy to access and understand document could definitely be put together from the different points of view to cover some of these things in a kind of FAQ style. The book industry is willing to participate in such an activity because the questions are legitimate. Sometimes when people are in decision making mode, they don't necessarily have the luxury of a lot of time to reach out to all the different parties. So we have to look at ways to make the information accessible and easily understood, beyond the different jargon and so on that is involved. And I would just finally say, definitely could make lots of other points, but just to say that the book industry, as Ms. Sims mentioned, we will be working with the ministry and other stakeholders to look at how we can continue to make content and materials more dynamic, more accessible. The book industry, in particular, is very interested in deepening our work in the area of accessibility for learners with special needs or people living in the community with special needs. And so that is something that we are going to be zoning in on come 2021, or we have started doing our research, because that is necessary for the kind of inclusive growth and development that we need. And that in and of itself will come with some implications in terms of both publishers and authors, etc., providing certain access to their materials, and members of the public and other stakeholders understanding the different contexts within which we're providing the access. And that we definitely, at the end of the day, have to balance. The key is balance to make sure that you can get access, but at the same time, those who create and invest in creating materials for them to be available, that their rights are protected and respected as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Latoya. Very good points to share with us, and we understand that you have to go. So thanks for sharing before you depart.
Yes, and thanks for having me, and all the best to everybody on the call.
Thanks too. Right, so a lot of different issues to discuss and to share. So again, you can post your questions. I'm going to share a few which I see have been posted already. So I see a question from Michelle Robertson: how are copyright applied to ebooks? So that was just touched upon a while ago too. It was mentioned by Ms. Sims as well as by Mrs. West Blackwood. So in terms of the ebooks, then the platform would not change much the copyright rights themselves, but certainly, as was mentioned, there is an important role to be played for what we call DRM, digital rights management, to be able to better protect those forms of works, right? Not just by PDF, as Mrs. West Blackwood said, but by other forms of technology being applied to embed and protect and prevent the widespread copying and usage of these works without permission. So Ms. Sims mentioned, of course, the use of DRM for the ministry's books, and use of watermarks as well, as a means to also protect. So the more your copyright works are in a digital format, you're going to have it being easier to copy them. And so you may need to, explore how best to know how some digital protection tools to be able to, basically prevent people from unlocking and unauthorized access to your works, through those means. I also see a question here. I want to know, how am I protected as a teacher who has to provide content for my students? Right. In providing content, I use a lot of information from different authors. While I do in-text citation and references to create those authors, I'm quite concerned because I don't want to go to prison. I don't have any money to pay any fines. Right? I think it's a very real concern for many teachers out there, And so for that question, I'm going to probably see if we can engage Miss Davies. Philippa, are you there with us still? Maybe you can address that question. No, is Miss Davies there? She is? Okay. If you can hear us, Philippa, and you can address that question on the screen, that would be good for us to hear your response. Maybe not. Okay, fine. I mean, I know we're having challenges earlier, so we do want to keep it flowing and rolling. Miss English, since you're here, we can pass it over to Miss English. So, and see how we can make sure that question gets addressed. Right. So, any more questions? Let me go and see. Right. I saw a question concerning the public domain. So, when copyright expires, right, the term of protection expires, then yes, the copyright works do go in the public domain. I saw a mention that the works are only valid for 50 years. So in our local law here in Jamaica, it was in 2015 amended to provide for copyright to last for the entire life of the author plus 95 years thereafter. So our law actually goes well beyond the 50 years minimum to protect for the life of the author plus 95 years. So it's a very long time for the copyright works. Right. I see a question also concerning how to request access to copyrighted material. And that again is something that would have to involve jam copy, right? Where as the CMO, the organization that represents copyright owners in Jamaica for literary and artistic works, they will be the ones to be contacted to request a license to be able to use their members' copyright works, right? And so again, there are questions there that can be raised. I heard a question from Ms. Lindsay concerning whether or not organization like NATE could get a license for all of their members, right? As well as whether their members' copyright works could be represented and protected through NATE. And so I would also want to ask Jam Copy to address the issue of the copyright licenses available through Jam Copy, as well as this special rate, which I know are also on the table this year for COVID as well, which can be promoted for a person to be able to know what they're facing. And of course, this will not be on a case-by-case basis. It will be for the school, to apply. As you heard also from Ms. Sims, the ministry is itself applying for a license, and so that would, once concluded, cover the public sector schools. So you would have to worry about that as an individual teacher or an individual school once you fall under the ministry and the ministry's license, right? So is Jam Copy there to speak about the Jam Copy licenses that are available? No? All right. Right, I see a question. Okay, yes. Maybe if you want to address those questions, John, we'd like to have you answer those questions because those are, I think, among the burning concerns of the audience. So if Philippa can't join, maybe you could speak to that, John? No, this is for Dr. John Pickney.
What you said?
I saw a message from Dr. Pickney.
What the name is? What you said her name? J-O?
Yeah. Right. So for the question by Terrain, right? Please do contact Jam Copy. And of course, their details are available online. They are the ones to contact for the licenses. And they can also tell you about the rates, how they will be calculated, as well as they can tell you how you can become a member. So as individual teachers, right, who are also copyright authors, you write, you present, you create copyright works. You can also, of course, be a copyright owner. And so you should also talk to Jam Copy about how to register as a copyright owner, as a member of Jam Copy. In that respect, people who want to use your copyright work would then have to get permission from Jam Copy to do so, and then have to pay for use, pay for that license from Jam Copy. And of course, as a copyright owner, you would then be paid proceeds from the rates that are collected by Jam Copy, and that would then be a revenue stream for you as a copyright owner and a Jam Copy member. So it's also important to bear in mind as copyright owners, as teachers in your own right, that you can be able to protect your copyright works. As was stated before, copyright is automatic, and so there's no need to register necessarily, right, in law to have it legally protected. But we do have a system of registration at Jaipur since 2015, where you can choose to, if you want to, register your copyright works, really very affordable. And the fees are more than manageable, for a person to want to be able to have something registered to prove, if you choose to, that you are the owner of the copyright work that you have registered with us, right? So that is how it works here in Jamaica, for sure. So I'm not hearing any of our Jam Copy presenters or representatives. Philippa or John?
Are you hearing me?
Dr. Goff?
Yes,
I'm
yes, we
seeing
can
a
hear you.
message. I'm seeing a message from Dr. Pickney that she's unable to speak. She's not getting access to speak.
Okay.
Hello?
Hi, we hear you now. John, please go ahead.
Yes, right. I wanted to respond to the question. And could you refresh my memory as to what the question is in relation to licensing, I think it was?
Yes, the question is, how do people get a Jam Copy license to use copyright works, and probably also to address any special rates available now for the Jam Copy licenses, and also how do teachers become members of Jam Copy as well?
All right, so let's speak to the licensing first. A license is granted to anyone or any institution or agency who, by virtue of their business, they need to facilitate or use works, whether for a long period of time as an ongoing activity of their course of business, or whether it is just for a short period of time. So that discussion can be held with Jam Copy if you have persons who require those services. However, as it relates to the Ministry of Education, as was said by the presenter from the ministry, that there our discussions, ongoing discussions with the ministry and the jam copy to have a license in place, which would include all the secondary schools and the primary schools. So those persons who fall within the ambit of the government, the governing of the Ministry of Education would be included, and that would include students, teachers, administrative staff, and all persons who are authorized to operate within those institutions across the island. And the license has particular privileges, certain conditions. And what the Copyright Act says is that once a governing collective society exists within the context or within the country, the persons who need to use the works of others, unless you want to make direct contact with the individual whose work you want to use, but as long as a governing body, especially as it relates to educational institutions, the institution is obliged to have a license. And so these discussions with the ministry is to put a license in place. So the persons who fall under the management of the ministry will, in short order, we hope, be covered in terms of the copying or reproduction of works. Because what Jam Copies facilitates, as Philippa mentioned, is the using the secondary use of the works that are provided by the creators and publishers. Of course, the conditions of the license are stipulated, and as Philippa mentioned, that we have expanded that because of the COVID-19 pandemic. In relation to becoming a member, if you are you still hearing me? I'm not sure.
Sure.
Oh, okay. In relation to becoming a member, once you have created a work, that work, let me say first of all, persons usually ask, how do I get copyright? And we say to them that once you have created a work and it is in a tangible form, meaning it is written or it is recorded in some way, that the copyright emerges immediately within the work. So it is not for you to get copyright, it's for you to be able to prove to persons who may want to access the work or use the work, or to the public, for that matter, that the work belongs to you, that you are the one, that the owner of the copyright within the work. And so what we say to persons is that you can do the voluntary registration, and this is what JIPO would tell you, that you can either go to JIPO to register the work once you have created it, and you do the notation of your name, the copyright symbol, and the date on the work, and you take it to JIPO. I think it is stored virtually, and you pay a fee, and the receipt, the date on the receipt, it would be your evidence that you had the work in your possession prior to that date. And so you keep that receipt in a safe place as it pertains to that particular work. And similarly, the poor man's copyright is another exercise, a voluntary exercise that you do to say to the world that this work is yours and that you have the copyright, you own the copyright within the work. And so you do what we call poor man's copyright, meaning you post it, put it in an envelope, address the envelope to yourself, register it at the post office, and when it comes back to you, you keep it unopened. That date that is stamped on the envelope by the post office will indicate that that work has been in your possession before the date that is stamped there. So having done that, and for any work that you create, you do that and ensure that you note what work it is on the envelope, because sometimes you do lots of works and you may be confused as to which work it is. So to be safe, you note what work it is on the respective envelope when you do the poor man's copyright. And then once the work has been published in a published form, and by published we mean that it appears in print, or it is in some formal publication, the Gleaner, a book that is put together by a publisher, or even if it is self-published, but it is in a form which is a finished form, not just a photocopy of it, but in a form which suggests a formal publication format. And of course, if you're not sure, you take it to Jam Copy and we will analyze it for you to let you know whether it is formal for our purposes. And you can use that work as an indication that you have created a work, you're a creator, and you take in your government issue ID as well as the work itself. You complete a form which is accessible from our website, and you can send it in because of our COVID-19 circumstances. We prefer that you send it in via email or leave it by our or security desk, and we will collect and make contact with you. But it's really, once you have created a work, once you can prove that you have created a work, it really is a simple process. On our website, www.jamcopy.com, it gives you those guidelines and all the forms and all the various questions that you may have can be answered, or you may contact our offices at 17 Ruthven Road.
Okay, thanks very much, Joan, for that. I see a question here which I'm going to ask Ms. Sims to address. Ms. Sims, I see a question on the chat. Are there any immediate plans at MOEUII to share the ebooks that were used in the E-Library pilot project of 2018 with schools who are not a part of that pilot? Ms. Sims?
Mr. Goff, just to say that the pilot started just this year, and it started at the secondary level. All right, so we are still doing some finalizing because for a pilot, we have to ensure that we have the proper program monitoring and evaluation in place, because we want data to drive how we do the rollout of ebooks to our system. So just to say, in the the 4 subject areas are principles of business, principles of accounts, English language, and science at the grade 9 level. All right, so that's the information I can disclose at this time. I'm hoping that that information helps.
Yes, I think so. Thank you very much for that. I see a question about, from a teacher, I create a number of songs that I use in my teaching. Now that we're online, my work is out there. How can I ensure my work is protected? Right? I think we touched on that already in terms of how to protect. So it's automatic, of course, copyright, but you can choose to register. For music, you have to register. Well, the songs themselves, the musical composition, you have to register with JCAP, as a musical composer. For your song lyrics, you'd have to register those at Jam Copy, which was also addressed by Dr. Pickney a while ago. So please, creative teachers, please do proceed to protect your copyright work, because of course, you may earn from them, outside of teaching, and you may want to use them afterwards as well for other kinds of endeavors. What other question do I see here? I see a question that concerns. I think it's
Hi, Dr. Goff.
Yes, please.
Philippa here.
Yes, I feel about.
There was a question about using YouTube. I saw a question about using YouTube links in creating content. So if I may?
Sure, please.
Just wanted to say to teachers that the Copyright Act, in trying to make a balance between protecting rights of authors and owners as well as providing public access to information, it does provide a number of exceptions in which persons can make use of content without having to get permission or to pay a royalty. And so teachers should, in looking at the Copyright Act, familiarize themselves with the exceptions. And there are exceptions concerning using sound recordings or films or broadcasts and copying those in making films or film soundtracks in the course of instruction, or where a recording of a broadcast or cable program is made on behalf of an educational establishment for educational purposes. This doesn't infringe copyright. But also, the Copyright Act also has something called fair dealing, and Ms. English probably spoke to this. So, for example, if the teacher does include the link in the course pack and the student reviews that in their own private study or research, I don't think that would be infringing copyright, because the student is viewing that material personally. And I think that would fall under fair dealing. They're not making a copy of that YouTube recording to go and sell or to commercialize, which would infringe the rights of the creator of the video, but they're reviewing it for their private study and research. But also, the teachers can look on YouTube, which has its own copyright rules for accessing, using, uploading material to that channel. And so they can also look and see what restrictions or permission is granted, but to look at the exceptions under the Act and see whether what they want to do in the provision of information for education could fall under the existing exception.
Thanks very much, Philippa. I think that was a very useful answer and something that I can see people will have to grapple with daily. You know, when you use things online, so sometimes people feel that because it's easily accessible, it's free to use, right? Of course, we know it's not that way. But the online environment makes it seem that because it's easy to use, it's free to use, right? Not always that way at all. Of course, when you want to use certain images, right, best if you can find a common or available Creative Commons license or open access symbol or images, you know, to use if you can find those. Of course, if you create your own content, that's even better, right, as teachers. All right, so I think we answered all of the questions. I want to just ask Miss English from Jaipur, you know, her closing, to speak to the issues of access for special needs, which was raised by BIAJ, and also to talk about what are the copyright services that we have at Jaipur, which can
Mr. Goff, excuse me.
Yes.
There is a question from one Mr. Dalton Spence in the chat. You could just
How can I
check that
copyright
for
the
me,
lesson?
please.
Right. So yes, I'll
Yes.
ask you to leave that as well. Okay. So Miss English.
Thank you, Dr. Goff. Thank Okay, thank you for that question. I just want to say thanks to everyone who stayed with us this evening. Really had an extensive and very interesting discussion, and a time as this called for such discussion. Now, the question about your lesson plan, as was said previously, copyright is automatic. So once your work is in writing or tangible format, you receive automatic protection. But at Jaipur, we offer a voluntary registration service. So teachers can also feel free, which is we consider to be a literary work, so teachers can feel free to submit their lesson plans to us by email. They'll need to complete 2 documents, though, an application form and a declaration form, all of which can be found on our website, www.jipo.gov.jm, and just a minimal fee, and you can always feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to guide you through the process. Upon completing the process, you'll receive a certificate, and that certificate serves as evidence or proof which you can use in the courts of law to state that you are the author or owner of the work. Also, in my presentation, in response to that question as well, section 22, I made mention that the author is considered to be the first owner of the copyrighted work, subject to any agreement to the contrary. And so it's always very important that you read your employment contract to see whether the institution or school owns the copyright in the work. That's in relation to the question that was just raised. As it relates to the question earlier, she was asking about access online, and we know the Marrakesh Treaty facilitates access to those persons who are visually impaired and also persons who are blind. So that's also in effect to protect, or will come in effect to protect those persons who are have special needs. So that is something that will extend to them as well. As it relates to Miss Miss Lindsay made quite a few points earlier. She stated that there are a number of concerns that they have in terms of the teaching learning platform. The recommendation also is to set certain guidelines for your students within that online platform, and just to share the importance of creators and their works, and to encourage students to be creative as separate apart from using other individuals' work, and just to appreciate the general principles of copyright, which again, this information can be found on our website, www.jipo.gov.jm. I think that's where I'll stop. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and feel free to contact JIPO for any information that you need as it relates to depositing any work that you have, whether it be literary, sound recordings, any other categories I mentioned earlier. And if it is that you want access to the presentation, we will upload this on our website at a later date. And again, 96 attendees who are still online with us, we know it is late, so thank you for still staying with us.
Thanks very much, Miss English, for that closing remarks. Thanks to all our presenters for answering the questions and for joining us this evening. Thanks to our partner organization, Jam Copy and Nate, right? Of course, thanks also to the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. And thanks also, of course, to the Book Industry Association of Jamaica. This obviously just a starting spot or place for discussions. A lot more, I think, will come for discussion as we traverse this new COVID teaching environment, So we wish the BIAJ and the Ministry and John Copy all the best with those negotiations. We look forward to being able to help persons who have questions or issues or need some guidance in these areas, and so we are available to always be able to serve you and to help you along the way. Thanks again to our speakers, to Ms. Philippa Davies from Jam Copy, Mrs. Latoya West Blackwood from BIAJ, Ms. Lindsay and Mrs. Pinnock from NATE, as well as Ms. Simmons from MOEYI. We will be having another in our webinar series next week. We will partner with WIPO to do well, that's a more high-level discussion. We also have a webinar on the 19th, looking at the industrial designs framework as well. And so we'll continue to share with you on different aspects of IP for your engagement. You have one more question you were saying?
There's one more question that deals with the National Library of Jamaica.
What was the role of the National Library of Jamaica?
Right. So the Legal Deposit Act provides that once you are a creator in Jamaica, it's by law that you should deposit with the National Library of Jamaica. So that is their rule. So once you're a creator, once you've created any work, you're automatically required by law to deposit, say, with the National Library of Jamaica. All right? And you can always contact them as you look for information.
Right. The ISBN number I see there, you can also probably best speak to Jam Copy about, I would say, and the National Library as well. Those ISBN number, right. They are the ones who will guide you. Of course, the law requires persons to deposit all copyright works at the National Library for archival purposes. So please do so. It will be there for posterity, for future generations. We will be having a poll. Mr. Hope, we're going to launch the poll. So please do stay with us for a few more minutes just to complete the poll. If you can, look forward to your feedback and to your future participation in this webinar series. So thanks again to the team, to our JIPO team, Ms. English, Ms. Bellamy, Mr. Hope, Ms. Young, Ms. Wright, and the rest of the Jam Copy team as well, and the NATE team who have to make this a reality this evening. And as I said, please complete the poll. You can join us, of course, on our website, www.jipo.gov.jm, and our social media pages, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, you can always come or call us here at JIPO. So thanks again, have a good evening. We look forward to seeing you in the near future on our JIPO webinar series. Thank you and good night.